Hello beautiful humans, welcome to my channel. My name is Vicky and today is officially the 13th day of my quarantine. And it's just 2 more days until I can finally get out of here and meet my family. China is currently in a very strict lockdown, meaning that only Chinese citizens with Chinese embassy's approval and very few foreign individuals are allowed to enter China. So as someone who has gone through all the testings and got all the documents required and who is quarantining in China, I thought I should make this video to break down the details of how exactly I did those things, and hopefully this video could help people out there who are also planning to come back home to China. To start off, let's talk about the background of Chinese policies on traveling during COVID. So the policies are actually very fluid and they do change all the time. Depending on the regions that you're flying from, they are ranked from high risk, medium to low risk. So to find out if you're qualified to travel to China or what kind of tests and how long you need to quarantine, what kind of documents you need to prepare for, you should always refer to the Chinese embassy's official website. They do update very regularly, almost on a daily or weekly basis, so you can definitely get the most accurate information on there before you fly. Now let's talk about the wait time. Fun fact, from planning my trip to I actually board a flight, it took me a total of 3 months of time. So in this video, I'm going to break down my itinerary to all of you guys, including what kind of tests I did, how many tests I did, how I got my flight tickets, and how I traveled by air in 24 hours from Toronto to Vancouver to Xiamen, China, and eventually to my final destination, Zhuhai. Originally, I booked my flight tickets for January, and originally I could just fly directly from Toronto to Guangzhou, and from Guangzhou to my cities, it's actually very close. You can just take the 1-hour high-speed train. Very convenient. However, here comes the complication. So in January, China found a couple of positive cases in the passengers flying from Toronto to China. We know that passengers all have to do a COVID test before their flight. However, sometimes COVID doesn't show symptoms immediately, but a few days later, you might find positive cases. So that's what happened. As a result, China postponed all the flights flying from Toronto to China, and unfortunately, I was on one of those flights. My flights got pushed back from late January to early February to late February to early March.
Many months later,
Eventually, my family and I decided that we're no longer going to wait for that flight anymore, and we're going to get the refund from the tickets and get a new flight ticket, and this time from Toronto to Vancouver, and then from Vancouver to China. Now let's talk about the testing. Based on my personal experience, I think the testing is the most difficult and complicated part. In total, I did 2 rounds of testings, and I'm going to tell you guys why I had to do them. In order to board your flight, you have to acquire the Chinese embassy's permission, which is known as the 绿色健康码 or the Green Health Code. In order to do that, you have to complete all the required tests, and the testing is all based on what category that you are in. So there are 3 categories of people. Either you are vaccinated, unvaccinated, or you were previously infected. Based on these 3 categories, you do different kind of tests to show the embassy that you are qualified for traveling. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to talk about what kind of test I did. So I did the total of 2 rounds of testing. 1 round is based on my category as a vaccinated individual who were vaccinated 2 doses in Canada. And the second round is a little bit more complicated. So let's get into this list together. If you are a vaccinated individual and if you are vaccinated outside of China, whether you got the Moderna, Pfizer, one of those, 7 days before your flight, you do a COVID test and you would start filling out your 7-day self-regulation form. And you have to list out your daily body temperature, you are in contact with other people, if you are quarantined, all the stuff. 2 days before your flight, you do a total antibody test, which is a blood test. It's a very thorough test. It will indicate whether you have contracted COVID before. That results in higher antibodies. They will find out everything. And I tripped up on that. With higher antibodies, I had to do a whole nother round of testing. We'll get into that. And one day before your flight, you will do your second COVID test. As soon as you get your test results, your COVID results on that day, you should be in touch with the Chinese embassy to apply for the Green Health Code. What you need is your proof of staying in Canada. It could be your driver's license, your visa, your passport, whatever it is. You also need your flight ticket itinerary. You need all the total test results that you have done, and also your vaccination report. Embassy usually takes a few hours to get back to you, and they will send you the code once you're qualified. 12 hours before your flight, you would need an antigen test. You can take the direct link at the Pearson Airport to the testing clinic. Now, this is what I call the further complication. Remember I mentioned that the antibody is a very thorough test. If you are tested with very low antibody, you're good to go. However, if you get tested higher antibody, which is an indication of whether you were previously infected or contracted COVID before, with that, you are suspected of maybe still having COVID in your system. So you will enter the second round of testing, which takes roughly a month of time, which is called the recovering pathway. You will need to do some additional testing. First of all, you need to do a CT scan of your lung, and you also need to do 2 additional COVID tests with 24 hours in between. After that, once you get that result, the embassy will approve you to enter this 3-week self-quarantine. After the 3 weeks of self-quarantine, you need to start all over the round 1 testing again. So the 7 days COVID test before your flight, the 2 days, the 12 hours before the flight, all that stuff. Basically the same repeat of the first round. All the above that I just mentioned was exactly what I did. I did the round 1 and round 2. That's why it took me 3 months to just wait for the flight tickets and 1 month to get through this recovering pathway or 康复者流程. Once you get the embassy's approval to fly or the Green Health Code, basically it's a huge burden lifted off your chest, because that just shows that you finally get to the final line. And all you gotta do is to make sure that you get to your antigen test on time, 12 hours exactly before your flight. And remember, if you have a layover, make sure that your 12 hours starts before your flight to China rather than your initial flight. And in terms of how exactly I flew from Toronto to Vancouver to Xiamen in 24 hours, I will show you guys my TikTok clip, and I think that will be detailed enough to show you how I did that. My flight from Toronto to Vancouver was at 6:30 p.m. I took the express train from Union Station at 2 p.m. to the Pearson Airport and got on a link to the antigen testing center, and immediately returned back to the airport once I was tested to check in. It was a 5 hours flight to Vancouver, and the Flair airline freaking delayed my flight. So I only had 30 minutes to pick up my luggage and rush to check in my flight to China. My Chinese flight was 13 hours. Everyone had their masks and gloves on, and the flight attendants were all geared up. So we had to fill out a form reporting your final destination after the quarantine and a few online forms. The next day we arrived in Xiamen, had to wait on the plane for 2 hours because the custom is very slow at processing each passenger. And I even had to do an extra COVID test. By the time I got to the quarantine center, it was already 6 hours after we landed, and here's the quarantine center that I'm spending 2 weeks at. I'll be posting exactly everything I eat and do during my quarantine, so stay tuned to my next YouTube videos. Also, I just wanted to say that I know that there are still many Chinese international students and workers who are basically stuck abroad, even though they really want to visit home and see their families. I just want to say, hang in there, take good care of yourself, and hopefully this video can bring some hope or answer some of your questions. And finally, stay connected. Follow me on my Instagram and TikTok, aka Vicky_ with 7 Zs. Subscribe to this channel because you know that there are a lot more fun vlogs and traveling videos coming your way soon. See you next time.